Youngpreneurs Podcast, episode number 129 with your host, Victor Ahipenny. What's up, world? Another day, another podcast. And today I've got a friend of mine, Mr. Dan deWitte, who is a serial entrepreneur. He's had his own previous startup that he got acquired. He helps other entrepreneurs as what he deems business coach 2.0. We delve into discussing if being a business coach is a load of bullshit and the things that you should be looking out for yourself as an entrepreneur. Or a budding person looking for a coach or a mentor in that space, as there is a lot of, I guess, tomfoolery around that word of business coach and the word of entrepreneur and the like. And I've talked about that in the past, but what is most exciting with Dan is he has just launched his latest company. It's called Activerelay. It's powering up the payment system and making it easier for entrepreneurs to integrate with ActiveCampaign. If you haven't checked out my episode, I think it's in the early hundreds, where I go through creating sales funnels and integrating with ActiveCampaign. It's the software that I choose to use, and Dan has made a software specific to ActiveCampaign for those that are using it. ActiveCampaign is awesome, and Activerelay is amazing. It'll save you and your team a lot of money, not having to go back and forth to do little tweaks, as well as just making the whole process really efficient. So make sure you grab a pen and paper. Dan is an absolute legend. He knows his stuff when it comes to entrepreneurship, business startups. There's going to be something for everyone in this episode. If you enjoy what we're talking about and you want to hear a bit more, make sure to check out passiveincomeyoung.com. You can find everything we talk about in the show notes, as well as some other awesome goodies and giveaways that we have on there. So in the meantime, guys, keep living life on your own terms. You're listening to the Youngpreneurs Podcast, the number one resource online for under 35-year-olds, where we chat twice a week to the most inspiring entrepreneurs in the world. We have it all. If you're looking for inspiration, guidance, or actionable tips to help you transition from that job into a business, or if you're ready to take that business to a whole new level, then this is the place to be. Get ready to live life on your own terms. Youngpreneurs, what is up? Welcome to another episode of the Youngpreneurs Podcast. I'm your host, Victor Ahipenny. Awesome to have you along, and I'm glad that you have decided to spend some time with us. You will not regret it today. I've got my friend Dan deWitte. He is known as the Business Coach 2.0. He's a digital strategist, and he's an entrepreneur dedicated to sharing his knowledge, which is what we're all here for, with small businesses just like you who want to leverage the online market. He's also the founder of a new software as a service, Activerelay. Welcome to the show, Dan.
Thank you very much. Thank you for having me on, Victor.
It's absolutely my pleasure. We love to start by finding out, I guess, who you are, but where have you come from? So what was childhood like growing up for you? Was it surrounded by entrepreneurs? Was it, inevitable that you were going to become an entrepreneur, or was there, a few bumps along the road?
Well, it's an interesting story. A lot of people that I have conversations with tend to have I come from a troubled past, I really wanted to make a successful future for myself, or I've grown up around entrepreneurs my whole life. I've very rarely found people with my kind of history space, and that is, I grew up in a country town in northern Australia, so I'm from the outback, classic country with cows and horses and stuff like that. And yeah, so I grew up in the outback and never really had the drive to be entrepreneurial per se. I was very creative and did a lot of things with my hands. As much of a computer wizard as my wife tends to dub me, I'm also a very hands-on type of person. Like, I'll go fix a tap in a sink, that kind of stuff. And so grew up, my early childhood through there, and really only found the computer when I was probably 10 or 11, so quite late in my childhood. And still back when the dial-up days were still about, and that used to drive me nuts.
When your mum would be, I got to ring the neighbours.
Yeah. No, Mum, I'm on the internet.
I'm chatting to babes on MSN.
Yeah, waiting for the internet to load for 50 minutes. So we moved from the Northern Territory, really hot place, through down to Canberra, where Dad got headhunted for a government job down here, and I've kind of based Canberra ever since. Been here a little over a decade now, and it's a really cool central base. I mean, it's no Sydney, Brisbane, or Melbourne, but man, in the time this year so far, I've probably spent a total of 7 weeks in Canberra. The rest of the time, I've been skipping around the country, dropping into Melbourne, dropping into Sydney, and it's just a cool base because it's 2 hours to the coast, it's 2 hours to the snow, and it's just one of those aspects. But I attribute my parents moving down here one of the greatest opportunities they ever gave myself and my younger sisters because we grew up in a small town. Arguably, a lot of my friends from back then have grown up and had kids and just kind of fallen into something that's in that town. And I'm not saying that's a bad thing at all, by all means. Like that's fantastic. But the doors opened up when we all moved out to Canberra, and like the whole world was, our oyster. Where when we were younger, it wasn't really realized or exposed to that kind of scenario.
Yep.
And yeah, so been in Canberra ever since, and here we are today. I left college and in 2008, so people who can do their maths, they can figure out how old I am. So I'm not as old as what a lot of people think. But left college, started a photography design business, which was quite fun. Fixed my creative need and moved on from that. Dabbled in a previous SaaS product which we built, launched and sold, and that's a whole nother story and for a whole nother conversation. But going through the trials and the fails and the hurdles and the roadblocks and the stupid o'clock Skype calls to a development team halfway around the world. And then, we launched that a little over 3 years ago, sold that off to a private investor here in Australia who loved the tech and was a part of another big firm. And they just folded us in, really, and we dusted our hands dry and walked away, which was nice. With that. And then I moved back into the digital marketing space, which I kind of fell in love with. And I honestly feel Australia is really just riding the curve of what's digital marketing here in Australia. Like our buying capacity is light years still behind what people are doing in the States. And that's quite empowering for a lot of people now who are looking to explore that digital space and, selling information-based products online. We met at the Traffic and Conversion Summit last year, Victor, and that was a great tipping point for a lot of people who are already playing in the internet marketing space. But now it's becoming more consumer-based knowledge, and mum, 2 streets down is discovering how she can do blogging and sell something online and make a living online than this whole traditional game of 9 to 5 type of business. I've got friends that still are in that, and I love them to bits, and they're super stoked on their job, and they think I'm crazy that I'm working more than 8 hours a day, but it is what it is, and it's been an exciting journey so far.
And I mean, that's the big thing that a lot of people out there listening, and sorry to everyone if you heard some beeping in the background. Somehow the fire alarm in my complex was going off, so apologies like that. I was trying to cover the shout of the microphone so it wouldn't
Did
pick
you
up
leave food on the stove?
Yeah, it's that bacon that's on fire, but that'll be all right.
Delicious.
So, yeah, I mean, that's one of the big things for everyone listening out there is, a lot of the times you jump out of your 9 to 5 to work, 5 to 9, and but what I've found, and I'm sure many of the guests and you, Dan, is it's easier. It's like you're doing something that you're passionate about that is benefiting for you. And I've been listening to the 10x rule from Grant Cardone, and it's you're either going to be building your own dream or a slave to somebody else's. Which some people do love that. That conformity and that sort of thing. But I mean, I think once you find that thing that makes you tick, and the accessibility of the internet these days, and how quickly you can develop, trial, grow a business, and change and pivot and all of these different things is just something that 15 years ago just wouldn't have been possible with the resources. Now,
I think if I can touch that fire alarm's going to drive you mental, man. If I can touch on that, though, with the Grant Cardone stuff about, a slave to somebody else, I also am a firm believer, and I love what Gary's preaching with the whole self-awareness game, and take my hat off to that guy because he's huge on the self-awareness front. And I think the biggest issue, what I'm finding with a lot of small business owners, because I've come from that consulting coaching space, and I'll touch on why I say the 2.0 coach in just a minute, is that the self-awareness that they can't do it all themselves. And a lot of people, small business owners, and I'm assuming a lot of the listeners on this podcast are, wearing multiple hats all the time, and it drives you mental. And I'll stick my hand up right now and say I'm wearing multiple hats right now, and it's driving me absolutely batshit crazy, because I'm working, I've been up since 6 o'clock this morning. I won't get to bed until midnight tonight because I'm catching the US in the morning and the US in the evening. But the self-awareness of that, in order your business to grow, what needs to happen? Who do you need to bring into play, like key people into play to actually, give back the time so you can, because the whole ultimate goal is to have more time, more freedom, right? To spend with the loved ones and do the things that we want to do. Who do we need to find that can actually plug our weaknesses and be a strength for ourselves? And, and that's a topic that every small business owner needs to have that conversation with themselves, or at least with a close friend in the business sphere. I don't recommend that you go and ask a friend who works for somebody else, because they're not going to understand. And that's hard for some people, but that's the honest truth.
Yeah, and that's one of the things that I think, Gary Vee is. It's one of these things. Like I was having a beer with some friends on the weekend, and I introduced one of them to Gary Vee a couple of months ago, and he's like, I try and watch this thing every day, and he said he finds it really good, and he's a small business owner, and he said,
it's just too much content.
Yeah,
I can't consume it. It's just way too much.
But this guy's a small business owner, and I said to him, he was talking about, I don't know about the 18-hour a day, blah blah blah, and I said, you've got to understand that weekends are his. He's talked about that, and the big thing with it though is he doesn't try and do everything in his business. He's doing what he is best at for 18 hours a day.
That's it.
Not web design. Gary Vee's not sitting behind a computer trying to move one little icon sideways one direction, and then he's working on the things that are going to be most beneficial to his business and hire the people who are the best talent, which is it's the big dilemma in small business, I think, is trying to being able to scale that. But it's the thing that differentiates successful small businesses that I guess get the chance to develop to medium or larger size businesses versus the other side of things of the failing small businesses. So let's talk about, because I was going to call you out on it, because unfortunately, the internet world has destroyed the word business coach.
Yeah.
And there's so many people who are business coaches who teach people to become business coaches, who teach people to become business coaches. And, I'm sick of it in the sense of what business have you started? What have you done? What real skills are you teaching people to do? Are you teaching them to create a ClickFunnels funnel that teaches them to come to a webinar to sign up to your business coaching course
on how to be a business coach?
Yeah, and it's multi-level marketing in the worst form, because there actually is no product. Like at least something like Isogenics, you get some shakes to drink or something like that. Like this is and it's. I guess we're in the bubble as well. Like, we see it a lot on Facebook, probably compared to a lot of other people. But to me, it's just scammy crap, and some people are better scammy crap artists than others. So, what differentiates you?
I hate the term. Like, and if I can I swear on this podcast?
Yeah,
I fucking hate it, and it drives me mental, because you've nailed it on the head, right? There's so many people out there that are teaching people how to do other things, and that's fine. Like, if you can make a living off that, touche, like, my hat's off to you. But I hate using the term, and the reason why I put the 2.0 label on there is I don't teach the traditional stuff. I know what I am good at, and I know what I'm not so good at. I hate accounting. I'm not here to coach you on crunching your accounting numbers, but I'll happily sit down and how can we increase your production facility by 10%, and what does that revenue generate you in the long run? Is that simply, do we need to employ someone in this particular role to do this particular task? Yeah, it may cost you if it's offshore, it may cost you maybe 10, 15K a year. If it's onshore, it may cost you, 40 plus. But what's, putting that person in that inefficient spot right now, what is the revenue projection off the back end of that? And really sitting down with businesses and taking them out of what they know right now, because you see it yourself, Victor, is that your business becomes your baby, and I'm actually succumbing to that little bit of frustration myself right now with Activerelay, is that you get so caught up in doing your day-to-day operations, you very rarely get the opportunity to take a step back and really work on those things. So I don't like being labeled the business coach, but yeah, that's what's been labeled, so I kind of have to run with it.
I mean, it's what the market understands.
That's it. That's it. And, I play in that whole online marketing space. So the whole funnel scenario, the atypical lead magnet, tripwire, all that jazz, that I do that shit blindfolded. And, I enjoy that. And I love everything that I do. And it's the unfortunate thing, the industry's been tarnished by the other people in the space that tout how to do certain things and not necessarily have walked the walk in previous lives.
Yes, or they say they have.
Yeah.
Which I mean is it's any industry. There's going to be that. I think it's just a bit more prevalent now on the online.
But
the online space.
I don't think it's more prevalent. I think it's more worldly accessible now because the whole, and this is a touchy topic, but police shootings and other shootings and all that other jazz, I don't believe more and more of it's happening. I think more and more of it's being exposed in the media. And that's the shift that everyone's facing. And I think it's, the whole thing is just a terrible scenario in general. But I think what's happening now and what we're starting to see a lot more of is because everyone has an iPhone, everyone has, some form of camera that they can just take a stream of video, upload it to the internet. It could be misconstrued in 20 different ways, and it just becomes, that viral piece of content.
And the counter, the proof in the pudding is Harambe. Is everybody for a gorilla that got shot, which we won't go into.
Yes. I was trying to think, what was that? And
but it's literally gone into memes and everybody who kind of overreacted to the situation. I'm not saying the situation was good or bad, like I'm not here to discuss that, but it's gone to that point that everybody now jokes about it because it was so overreacted because of the internet. It's 12 people get shot in a mass killing, but a gorilla got shot. And that was the massive outrage. So I agree. The internet puts a massive magnifying glass and accentuates everything.
Huge. And I think because we play in this coachy space a little bit more, business coaches are a dime a dozen, life coaches are a dime a dozen. And if I can impart any knowledge on anyone, do your due diligence and really ask the questions of those people. Not necessarily like the history basis of, have you done X, Y, and Z, but if they're able to help you achieve a goal in a particular thing, then, what's with the label at the end of the day? The sad thing is it's that small minority that, tarnishes you can't tarnish the same people with the same brush, but unfortunately that's what's happening at the moment.
And let's jump a bit more into, I guess, the non-business coaching side of your life at the moment. So your Activerelay, what does it do? And I guess where did kind of the idea and everything start with it?
Yeah, so I've got a long history with Infusionsoft, and for the listeners that don't know what Infusionsoft is, it's an email marketing CRM based out of the States. It's absolutely ginormous. It's an all-encompassing platform where you can do the whole order form, checkout process, your payment processing, all internal within it, and then send them on a whole campaign nurture sequence of automated emails based on actions taken by a contact or reactions done within the system. So I got onto that a couple of years ago where a client at the time who became my girlfriend and now my wife, good dating analogy, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, she introduced me to that, and I fell in love, and that's where I fell into the whole internet marketing game and stream a little over 4 years ago, and I've kind of never looked back since, and built my whole career off it now.
Did you
And
have to change? Did you have to change your ideal client that you'd written down after you started dating her? You're like, I prefer blonde, friendly, entrepreneurial.
I
Oh, I
never
better.
I never thought of that. I never thought of it like that. That's a good question. Um, yeah, wow, that's thrown me off. So, so long story short, a little over 12 months ago, a lot of my consulting clients or coaching clients, whatever you want to call them, I love them to bits. So shout out to them all. They're all kicking massive goals, and I'm super proud of them. Uh, a lot of them couldn't justify Infusionsoft as a business requirement, flat out. It wasn't worth the. And majority of my clients are Australian-based clients, so a US-based company charging in USD at that price point was coming back into Australia at about 400 a month.
Yep.
And that for a databasing CRM is quite, an expensive drawback. So I started exploring around, looking around, and intentionally stumbled across ActiveCampaign. Have kind of fell in love with it ever since. And it's such an incredible platform for what it does and for the price point that you can get it at. And I love their whole ethos of we do what we do best, and we partner with the companies that do what they do best. Yeah. And they're all about inspiring that next generation, which is quite like I completely resonate with that, and where I've taken Activerelay. So long story short, Activerelay is the payment platform that was designed and built for ActiveCampaign. So a little over 12 months ago, the headache, and there's still a headache in the market space, is that people have these jerry-rigged configurations of PayPal buttons or Stripe buttons that partially go into CRMs, partially not, and it's so disjointed, that whole e-commerce timeline for someone purchasing, and that was quite frustrating because there's so many inefficiencies in there that we could just streamline the whole process. So fast forward today, designed the whole UI, the process, the internal processes, learnt a lot more about e-commerce than I initially had when I moved into the platform. I just kind of had the idea with I had 20 odd clients that were like, Dan, this needs to happen. I was like, okay, well, if 20 odd people say they need this, what's stopping me going and finding 20 more people and 20 more, and so on and so on and so on. And I sat down with one of my project managers, and I said, this is what I want to create. Can we do it? And he was like, sure. We've never worked with the ActiveCampaign API, but why not? And fast forward to today, we have a fully fledged platform that launched a little over 3 weeks ago, and you can essentially set up and start selling any form of product online in less than half an hour. And
so awesome.
That to me is so inspiring. It's not funny, because I've seen it in my clients, the frustration and headaches and the hours we've spent dicking around on Skype trying to configure buttons, or paying my developers or somebody else's some other developer to code up some form of checkout page to work, only 2 weeks down the track wanting to change the layout or the color or the description because there was a spelling mistake or something like that. And it just became costly and time consuming. So for the platform now to set up and start selling in less than half an hour is huge. Like, from someone who doesn't know how to do anything in the online space, can go and sign up to ActiveCampaign in 5 minutes flat for free on their 30-day free trial. They can sign up to Activerelay on the 15-day free trial and get their Stripe account, and they could be transacting within a week. Like, half an hour is you've got all the content ready kind of scenario, but there's nothing stopping you having the content primed and ready to go. And it's leading into this what excites me is leading into this next wave of the digital entrepreneur, and I put that in inverted commas because that entrepreneur word kind of bugs me a little bit at this point in time.
Yeah.
Purely because it's waved around way too much, kind of like business coach and life coach. So, someone who wants to explore that online space, be it through, selling some form of book, plan something, that's fine. That doesn't bother me. If you can sell something online and somebody's willing to buy it in mass consumption, then my hat's off to you. Well done.
Yeah, I agree. And for everyone out there who kind of is just like, I have no idea what Dan's talking about with like active campaign and things like that, it's just imagine that you're at your job and you have to handwrite every email at the moment, handwrite everything, and then you have to type it in, and then you have to send it to your secretary, and then she has to send it. And instead, you can just write the email and click send, or you can dictate the email and click send. That's kind of the efficiency standpoint that I guess a terrible analogy of is how much time this is going to save, how much more streamlines it's going to be. And it means like, you can just do these edits and not be paying your developer, a few $100s an hour to change the format on something. And you can do it yourself. But
another analogy I like to use, Victor, is like everyone's purchased something online before, right? And you've always received that confirmation email going, "Hey, Victor, thanks for purchasing blah. Here's your receipt," right? That's just typical standard. We come to expect that. But when you get another email like half an hour later, that from, let's just say you purchased a product from me and you received an email half an hour later, and it's, "Hey, Victor, Dan here, just checking in. Thank you so much for purchasing product X right now. Here's some quick start blah 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 guides to get you going." You and I both know that's automated, but to the average consumer that's purchasing outside of the internet marketing space doesn't know that that's automated. And that's a beautiful touch point. And this is where, I like to stem the conversation into bridging the customer experience and really having that multiple touch points with them. Because if you can, like, for instance, in some form, some online memberships and stuff like that, and even just like a general product that can be consumed, if you can have some form of nurture, like post-purchase nurture, the like increase in conversions at a later time based on just those nurture emails is phenomenal. It's upwards of 30%, purely because you're offering the support, right? And it doesn't take you much, maybe a couple of hours to write out 6 emails, and you put them in an automation that drip feeds the content over a 2-week period. But in that time frame that you're delivering so much more value to your client, that's priceless on the long run.
And this is for, if you're got a small business out there and you're listening to this, don't think this is just for the online space. Like, I'm a trained physio. I was telling one of my friends who owns a physio practice to set up Active Campaign and have a 6 to 8 email campaign that when a new patient comes in over the next 2 to 3 weeks, while they're still coming in for treatment, they're understanding why you started the practice, what your ethos is, your whole overall ideas of the practice. You might give them an offer halfway through that to keep them involved or to get referrals. Like all of these things. Like if you're getting that from your local physio or your local doctor, or it doesn't I'm just giving health examples, but it doesn't matter. It could be a cafe, it could be whatever. Having those sorts of things, if you're sitting out there, what's the likelihood that you're going to go back to that place versus to go searching for somewhere else? They've created a relationship with you, and that's the big thing. You don't necessarily have to be super formal with these emails either. You don't have to be like, "Thank you for coming to our coming to our doctors. It was very nice to have you here." And you can show them that you're a person, because people like interacting with people, and that's where I think automated campaigns just they leverage your time, which as everyone on here knows, I'm all about 80-20 as much as you can, but it also is just smart.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, the common question I get asked is, "Dan, but what do I email these people, and how often should I email them?" Email them if there's something exciting going on, like, "Hey guys, we've just got this new employee in, blah, blah, blah. This is John. Come say hi when you're next in the shop." That's all the email has to be. It doesn't have to be buy my shit, buy my shit, buy my shit, which is so prevalent through the internet marketing space. It's all about buy my shit, buy my shit, buy my shit. But when, you take that whole analogy and you put it offline and you use the, hey Victor, next time you come in, make sure you do X, Y, and Z, and just like pre-warning the people. And the most exciting thing that I like about this whole sphere is that we get to take people on a journey. So write down the storyline of what your journey wants to be, and write down the information you want to give them that you mightn't necessarily give them via a face-to-face conversation because you forget about it 9 times out of 10. But if you wanted to, tell all your consumers or your customers or clients, whatever you want to label them, your ethos and why you do what you do, then, and if you found that email is the best way to communicate that, then, you're saving yourself hours in a week.
Cool. Let's jump into quickly a couple of points in regards to a startup. So I'm sure there's some people out there that are going, hey, I'm wanting to get into some sort of new product and to grow it. From I guess an overarching thing, what are some of the biggest hurdles that you've hit, and I guess some strategies on how you've overcome them?
Yeah, definitely. I think there's two one that springs to mind, right? And so my previous startup, we got VC funding, we got a little under $500,000, and we bled it out. Like we were bleeding cash. And then the new startup, Activerelay, is being self-funded the whole way through. Now that's stunted some development growth naturally, in the early days, but the VC funding route, and I know a lot of people, this is kind of an interesting topic that a lot of people like to have. Like I see people, and Gary's touched on this before, there's people pitching for millions and millions of dollars, and they land these millions of dollars and then they do nothing with it. And then there's, the little Johnny in the corner or in his garage that's kind of smashing out good work and actually getting things done. And I truly resonate with that. And it was a blessing and a curse for us when we had that VC funding, because not only were we accountable to somebody else, which was actually a blessing, because we actually got our asses handed to us, a couple of times when it's like, hey guys, you need to actually look at this. But it was also a curse in the fact that we had more money than we actually needed to spend, and we would spend it doing a lot of other things, like unnecessary things, to get things done.
Parkinson's law.
Yeah.
Using up all the available resources because they're there.
Yeah, and I heard an analogy the other day about a tube of toothpaste, right? A tube of toothpaste can last weeks. That last little skerrick at the end of the toothpaste, like you kind of squish it all the way to the end, and then you really like squeeze out the last little skerricks. That's kind of how I see funding in the online space. And I know like there's bajillion companies out there that are doing it so successful, and where I'm at, that I'm quite proud, is that I've made sure that I'm patient with where the platform's at. Naturally, I'm frustrated with certain elements, as one would be. We would all like to have our stuff yesterday, but if you can't go down that VC funding route for whatever reason, or you don't want to go down that route purely because you want to see how far you can get with yourselves, it's a dangerous topic. But if you can do it, there's nothing stopping you, because the worst thing that can, like, I want you the listener, to think, what's the worst thing that could happen? Like, ultimately, the worst thing that could happen. And it's really not that bad. Like, you just hit restart and you go work for somebody else, and you come back to the project, or you do something different.
And that's it. If you're living your worst case scenario already and you can go back to it, then go and give something a shot. Especially, that's the message that we're trying to get across in this podcast is, we're ideally young, or on the younger end of the scope.
Naturally.
If you try things and they don't come off, then learn from it, adapt, suck it up. Have your couple of days of crying in your own lap, and then get stuck back into it.
Yeah. Now it's a different story though for people who have kids.
Yeah.
Now, I don't have kids yet. I no doubt I'll have kids one day, and that'll probably change my mindset around a few things. So definitely, like, the inherent risk in doing a startup is greater, because you've got mouths to feed and stuff like that. But there's nothing stopping you starting, the side hustle, again, inverted commas, because I think that's a bit of a joke as well. but there's nothing stopping you doing stuff outside of hours. And if you structure your timing right, and you know, like if you're in a 9 to 5 job, what's stopping you taking a day off a week or a day off a fortnight to work on the business? Like in reality, like not a lot's going to change. You're going to dip in a bit of income, but that day you get to spend working on the business, and I would encourage you, unless you work really, really well with your family and your young kids or wherever your kids are at in life, I would recommend that you go somewhere like a co-working space to really get out and still have that disconnect from home life in that scenario, if that works for you. But take a day off. I did a like one of my clients in Melbourne. She's a lovely lady. She's an ex-primary school teacher, and we scaled her down out of her job, and that was essentially taking 1 day off a fortnight, 2 days off a fortnight, and then it just kept scaling back until she was a part-time teacher, and then she scaled herself out of the business, and scaled or seesaw, whatever term you want to use on that one. But and she had a huge risk. She had a young kid, or two young kids, sorry, that were semi-dependent on her, and she also had a mortgage, and normal living expenses. So for her to actually scale out, and it's taken her a good 2 years to scale out, but now that she's scaled out, she's fully functioning in her own business. So it can be done.
And I think what the other side of that scaling down is, the further you scale down, the more hours you have available, the faster that generally occurs. Like
Definitely.
that 1 day off a fortnight might not make that big dent, but then when you get to 2 or 3 and you're like, wow, I've got 2 or 3 days that I can do 10, 12-hour days, if that's what you've got available, that's like a 30 hours per week, per fortnight, not including what else you can do in the evening. So it kind of all is a snowball effect that it makes a huge difference, and allows you to have some of those meetings or meeting up with JV partners or other people who can help you speed up that process. So I'd highly recommend it. I mean, I did it with physio. I went from 6 days to 4 days a week, and then continually to scale that down, and that was very, very helpful with time, and it keeps you energized and refreshed and things like that. So last few questions. What if you're on your deathbed at 120, 130 years old? The Canberra winters slowed the metabolism down and kept you alive a bit longer. What you're looking back on it, what would success look like to you?
That's a fantastic question. Success to me is having and it's a bit cliche, but having the freedom to do what I want to do when I want to do it with who I want to do it with. Now, I consider myself quite successful right now, and this is the cool thing. And I don't have millions of dollars in the bank, and that is okay. If that's your ultimate success goal, hats off to you. But I can fly around the world at a moment's notice. And that keep humming on the same trajectory where I am right now. Life's going to be pretty cool. I am attempting to get off the computer more and more now that Activerelay has launched. Naturally, in the months leading up to it, it was quite an interesting scenario. So I got married if we circle back to the start of the conversation, I got married in February, went on our short honeymoon in Fiji, got stuck in the tropical cyclone there, which was fun experience. And then we embarked on a round the world journey, and we literally went around the world. So we did Bali for some work in Bali, 2 weeks in Perth, Sri Lanka, Europe, trekked across the States and then back. That whole time I was launching Activerelay prepping to launch Activerelay. And then in that period, a little over a month ago, I really just sat down and knuckled down in getting Activerelay primed and ready for launch, and making sure that we were all, A-OK. And now that we've launched, it's focused on the growth aspect of the platform. But what I'm really excited to get back into is getting back on the mountain bike, getting back. I spent 3 weeks ago, spent a week at the Snow, where I was doing half-day sessions. In the morning I would jump on the call, from 6 till 9 in the morning, and then from 9 till about 12 in the afternoon, I'd go and hit the ski fields, and then I'd come back and do some work in the afternoon. Like that's where I'm on that trajectory now of going back to doing those things because I love the mountain bike. I love kite surfing. I love being outdoors, and as more, my goal is to do as more or as much as I can with that. So success for me in 100 years' time would be to have the ability to continue what I'm doing right now at a moment's notice. Obviously, fund the future family that I will eventually have, and potentially grandkids on that one at 100, and have the ability to enable more people to do more things. Because money is only ever an enabler for people. And if you're an asshole right now and you have money, or and you don't have money and you have a lot of money, you're just going to be a rich asshole.
Yep.
So, money's such an inspiring conversation, and the more and more I learn about it, the more and more, I can do things with money.
Yeah, I think it's fun credits.
Fun credits. Yes.
So it's just allows you to be at the amusement fair, and you've got unlimited tokens. If you got unlimited tokens, you can probably have a bit of fun.
Yeah.
But so on that point, obviously it takes a bit of skill to be able to travel the world, work half days, to have the discipline to it. What would you say is your best trait in business?
The ability to condense real technical topics. I can condense down real technical topics, and I've spent 4 years now in the marketing space, and that's quite a track record considering I'm on it maybe 7 days a week, and just condensing that technical knowledge. I think on the motivational aspect, we cancelled our honeymoon 2 days prior because both my wife and I were like, we want to get back and do some work. We're kind of over, we love each other and we love this adventure, but we kind of enjoy work as well at the same time, as weird as that sounds. So the motivational aspect, some days I wake up, like yesterday, I woke up, weird ass dream, and just felt rubbish in the morning and felt like not doing anything. And I pushed through. And in hindsight, hindsight's always 20/20 and it never makes mistakes. I should have just, cut away from the computer yesterday morning and done something completely off topic to come back in the afternoon to actually make things happen.
Yeah. Last question. Any books or resources that you'd recommend to any other young entrepreneurs that have, I guess, either they've just come into your stratosphere or they've had a big influence on you in your life?
Yeah, I was on a podcast 2 weeks ago and I got asked a similar question. I don't read a lot of books. In fact, I'm not much of a reader in general. So when I do read books, they do kind of resonate with me very, very well. And the one that sticks out is Simon Sinek's Start With Why. Because at the end of the day, people don't, and I'm channeling his exact quote, people don't buy what you do, they buy why you do it. And why I'm doing Activerelay is to enable more people to experience and make another living online, because Uber's done it, and this is cliche, I'm not I don't want to be called the next Uber. I'm not being the next Uber or the next Airbnb, but I'm giving the next, and I say generation because I find the internet space kind of works in generational shifts. The next generation of user that wants to have the ability to simply transact and sell something online, that's huge. And the whole ethos of Airbnb and Uber is to enable people to make an income regardless of their situation. If you own a car or you own a house, there's nothing stopping you making a little bit of extra money on the side by renting out your room or spending an extra hour to drive home, dropping off Sally down the road.
Yep. And that can put you in a massively different position.
Yeah, huge.
So we'll link that book link as well as everything else we talked about in the show notes at passiveincomeyoung.com. Finally, just want to welcome you and thank you for your time and welcome you to the Youngpreneurs family. If people want to find out more about you and Activerelay, where should they go and what should they do?
Well, they can jump on the Google Tube and Google activerelay.com, or they can jump on Facebook and search for Activerelay, all one word, Activerelay. Or if the really smart, cluey people, they're more than welcome to connect with me personally on Facebook. They can just find me at Dan deWitte.
Wicked. Well, we'll link all of that in the show notes. Again, thank you so much for your time. Look forward to pushing out Activerelay to everyone I know who's in this space and really watching it grow.
Awesome, man. Thank you very much for having me on.
Thanks for listening to the Youngpreneurs Podcast. This was proudly brought to you by the Podcast Institute, the #1 training resource to take your business from chasing leads to leads chasing you, and from an absolute amateur to a full-blown authority. If you're looking to take your business to the next level, then a podcast is the obvious answer. You can get national and global exposure in a very fast time, and it's just exactly what I've done with this podcast. So if you want to find out more, get a checklist on how you can get started for under $60, and to find out more through a small training video that I've prepared for you all, then please check out passiveincomeyoung.com/podcast training.